The call came on a Wednesday afternoon while I was reviewing acquisition reports for my latest corporate purchase. Michael Torres from Executive Events sounded deeply uncomfortable as he delivered the message that would forever change my family's perception of me. "Mr. Anderson, I'm calling about your father's retirement celebration this Saturday. Your siblings have made a request to remove you from the guest list, but they still expect your $75,000 contribution to cover all expenses." I paused, setting down the documents detailing my recent acquisition of Hartwell Industries, the manufacturing company where my father had worked for 32 years. Through my corner office windows, I could see the Seattle skyline where my corporate empire controlled everything from tech startups to established manufacturing firms. Remove me from the guest list? What justification did they provide? Michael's voice became strained. They mentioned wanting to maintain a certain professional atmosphere. Your brother Daniel specifically said that your father's former colleagues and company executives would be attending, and they felt your presence might not align with the caliber of guests they're expecting. The irony was breathtaking. For the past decade, my family had treated me like the black sheep, the son who'd dropped out of corporate life to chase what they considered risky business ventures. They had no idea that those ventures had evolved into Meridian Capital Group, a $3.4 billion investment and acquisition firm that now owned companies across 6 states. I see. And they expect me to fund a celebration I'm not worthy to attend. It appears so, yes. Your sister Patricia mentioned that your father has been looking forward to this retirement party for months, and they don't want to disappoint him by scaling back the celebration. Patricia. My older sister, the family's golden child who'd climbed the corporate ladder at a prestigious consulting firm. She'd spent years making subtle comments about my unconventional career choices, while positioning herself as the responsible, successful child. "Michael, I need you to cancel the entire event." "I'm sorry, what?" "But sir, it's your father's retirement celebration. I can't just..." "Yes, you can. Because the celebration is scheduled at Grandview Conference Center, which my company owns. The catering is being provided by Premier Hospitality Services, also mine. The hotel accommodations for out-of-town guests are at Meridian Hotels, part of my chain. And most importantly, your guest of honor works at Hartwell Industries, which I acquired last month." The silence on the other end stretched for nearly 30 seconds. "Mr. Anderson, I don't understand. The contracts show different company names. All subsidiaries of Meridian Capital Group. I'll have my legal team send over the ownership documentation within the hour. Consider this official notice that all services are being terminated immediately." After hanging up, I sat in my executive chair, looking out at the business empire I'd built while my family dismissed me as a failure. It had started with a small tech startup I'd purchased with my savings after leaving my corporate job 8 years ago. My family had been horrified, their son choosing entrepreneurship over the security of corporate employment. What they never understood was that I hadn't failed in corporate America. I'd simply realized that owning the companies was more appealing than working for them. Every successful exit had funded the next acquisition, and then the next, until I controlled a portfolio of companies worth billions. But to them I was still just Kevin, the disappointment who'd given up on stability to chase entrepreneurial fantasies. My phone buzzed. Daniel's name appeared on the screen. "Kevin, what the hell did you just do?" "Good afternoon to you too, Daniel. The event coordinator just called Dad in a panic, saying the retirement party is cancelled. He claims you own all the vendors." "That's impossible." "It's completely possible. I own all of them. You run a couple of small consulting firms. I own 43 companies across 6 states, Daniel. The small consulting firms you're referring to generate more annual revenue than Patricia's entire consulting group." The silence told me he was processing this information. "You're lying. I'm sending you some documents. After you review them, we can continue this conversation." I hung up and instructed my assistant to prepare a comprehensive portfolio of my holdings, focusing on the companies involved in the retirement party, plus the documentation showing my recent acquisition of Dad's employer. 25 minutes later, my phone started ringing. First Daniel, then Patricia, then my parents. I let them all go to voicemail while I finished reviewing the Hartwell Industries integration plan. Daniel's message was panicked. "Kevin, I've seen the documents. We need to talk immediately. This is Dad's retirement. We can't let family issues ruin his celebration." Patricia's message was more calculated. Kevin, I've reviewed the portfolio Daniel showed me. We clearly need to have a family discussion about recent developments. Please call me back so we can resolve this misunderstanding. My parents' message broke my heart. My father's voice was confused and hurt. Son, we're getting very confusing information about this weekend. Your mother is very upset and honestly, I don't understand what's happening. Can you please call us? I waited until evening to return their calls, starting with my parents. They were at Daniel's house, no doubt strategizing how to handle their suddenly successful son. Kevin. My mother's voice was forced cheerfulness. We've been trying to reach you all day. I know, Mom. I've been in meetings. Honey, Daniel and Patricia showed us some very impressive business documents. We had no idea you'd grown your little consulting business into something so extensive. There it was. Even in her attempt at acknowledgement, she couldn't help but refer to my empire as a little consulting business that had grown up. Is that what you wanted to discuss? My father took the phone. Son, we owe you an apology. We didn't realize how successful you'd become. But surely we can work out this situation with the retirement party. There's no situation to work out, Dad. Daniel and Patricia decided I wasn't suitable company for your celebration, but they still wanted my money to pay for it. That's not. Look, maybe they used poor judgment. But this is about celebrating my retirement, not them. We want you there. Do you? Or do you want me there now that you know I'm wealthy? Kevin, that's not fair. Isn't it? 6 months ago you asked me when I was going to stop playing entrepreneur and get back to a real job with benefits. You suggested I consider applying for a management position at Hartwell Industries. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. I now owned Hartwell Industries. Son, people change. We can do better. I hope so. But change requires acknowledging what went wrong. You all spent years being embarrassed by my career choice while I was building something that dwarfs any corporate salary. We were never embarrassed. Dad, you introduced me to your Hartwell colleagues as your son, who's trying to make it as an entrepreneur, while introducing Daniel as our successful marketing executive. The difference in pride was obvious. My mother took the phone back. Kevin, we love you. We've always been proud of your ambition. You love the successful version of me you just discovered. But you weren't proud of me when you thought I was struggling with small businesses. That's not true. Mom, for months ago you offered to help me with my health insurance because you assumed my little companies couldn't provide good benefits. You felt sorry for me. The reality was, my companies provided better benefits than most Fortune 500 corporations. But I'd never bothered to correct their assumptions because I'd wanted their love to be unconditional. So what happens now? My father asked quietly. Now we establish boundaries. I'm not your charity case and I'm not your trophy son. I'm your son, period. If you can love and respect me on those terms, we can rebuild our relationship. And my retirement party? Find a new venue, new catering, and new hotel arrangements for your guests. Might I suggest looking at companies I don't own? Although in this region that significantly limits your options. After hanging up, I made a decision that would reshape our family permanently. I called my head of corporate security and had him compile a detailed report of every financial interaction I'd had with my family over the past 5 years. The results were staggering. I'd been quietly subsidizing their lifestyle in ways they never realized. Daniel's marketing firm operated out of office space I owned. I'd been providing below-market rent through a property management subsidiary. Patricia's consulting group had received several anonymous contracts from companies in my portfolio. My parents' mortgage had been mysteriously refinanced at an incredibly low interest rate through a bank I had significant influence with. I'd been the invisible hand making their comfortable lifestyle possible while they pitted me for my apparent lack of traditional success. But I also did something else. I called the city's most exclusive event planning company and arranged for a surprise retirement celebration for my father. Not the large corporate networking event they'd planned, but an intimate gathering at my private estate overlooking Lake Washington. Then I contacted his real friends, the colleagues who'd worked alongside him for decades and genuinely cared about his retirement. If my siblings wanted to exclude me from their professional networking event disguised as a family celebration, fine. But I was still going to honor my father the way he deserved. Saturday morning arrived with typical Seattle rain. I was in my home office when my security system alerted me to visitors at the gate. Through the camera, I saw Patricia's BMW with my entire family inside. I'd never invited them to my house. They'd never known where I lived. The estate was a waterfront property I'd purchased quietly 2 years ago when I wanted more privacy for entertaining clients and partners. "How did you find me?" I asked through the intercom. "We hired a private investigator," Patricia said, her voice tight with stress. "Kevin, we need to talk." I buzzed them through, curious about what their investigation had revealed. They drove slowly up the curved driveway, past the manicured gardens and guest house, until they reached the main residence. Through my office window, I watched them sit in the car for several minutes, taking in the scope of the property. When they finally approached the front door, my mother was crying. "Kevin, this place is magnificent." "Thank you. Would you like to come in?" They followed me through the foyer with its soaring ceilings and contemporary art collection, past the great room with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake, to the kitchen that opened onto the infinity pool terrace. "The view is incredible," Patricia whispered, finally finding her voice. "I bought the property for the privacy and the location. The house was designed to take advantage of the water views." Daniel was studying the wine collection built into the dining room wall, bottles worth more than his annual salary. "Kevin, this wine collection alone must be worth more than you want to know." "Yes." My father was examining the custom millwork and architectural details. "Son, this must have cost." "I own it outright. No mortgage, no investors. Everything you see was purchased with profits from my little consulting business." Patricia sank into one of the kitchen island stools. "Why didn't you ever tell us about any of this?" "Because I wanted you to be proud of me for following my vision and building something meaningful, not impressed by my net worth. I wanted you to invite me to Dad's retirement party because I'm your brother and his son, not because I can afford to pay for it." "But we are proud of you," Daniel protested. "Really? When was the last time either of you asked about my business without suggesting I should consider returning to corporate employment?" Neither of them could answer. Patricia leaned forward. "Kevin, I owe you an apology. I've been condescending about your career choices because I didn't understand what you were building. As someone who works with corporate acquisitions, I should have recognized the scale of what you were accomplishing." "Should have, but didn't. Because you assumed that anything outside traditional corporate structure couldn't be truly successful." "That's fair. I was wrong." Daniel stepped forward. "Kevin, we both were wrong. We let our own career insecurities make us dismissive of your path. We can see now that you were building something far more impressive than either of our corporate jobs." "I wasn't trying to build something impressive, Daniel. I was trying to build something fulfilling. The financial success was a byproduct of following my passion for creating and growing businesses." My father cleared his throat. "Son, what can we do to make this right?" I pulled out the security report my team had prepared, showing them the comprehensive analysis of how I'd been supporting their lifestyle for years. "This is every time I've subsidized your lives over the past 5 years. Daniel's below-market office rent, Patricia's consulting contracts, your mortgage refinancing, all of it came from me or companies I control." Daniel stared at the numbers. "You've been helping us financially? I've been helping you succeed while you looked down on me for not achieving what you considered real success." "We didn't know," my mother whispered. "Because I didn't want you to know. I wanted to help because I love you, not because I was trying to prove my worth. But allowing you to see me as unsuccessful was a mistake. It enabled you to treat me poorly without understanding the consequences." "So what happens now?" Patricia asked. "Now we establish new boundaries. I'm not your safety net and I'm not your trophy brother. I'm your brother, period. If you can love and respect me on those terms, we can rebuild our relationship." My phone chimed with a text from my event coordinator. "Private retirement celebration ready at Estate Gardens. Guests arriving at 2 p.m. "Actually," I said, "there's something you should know. I've planned a different kind of retirement celebration for Dad." "What do you mean?" my father asked. "Your real friends. The people who worked alongside you for 30 years who care about you as a person, not your professional connections, will be arriving here in a few hours for an intimate retirement party. I've arranged for some of your favorite colleagues, the guys from your bowling league, and a few neighbors who've become genuine friends over the years." "You did all this?" My father's voice was thick with emotion. "You deserve to be celebrated. But by people who value you for who you are, not what you can do for their careers." Patricia started crying. "Kevin, we're so sorry. We turned your celebration into a networking event instead of honoring what you've accomplished. Dad's celebration, I corrected. And yes, you did. Can you forgive us? Daniel asked. I looked at my family, really looked at them. They were flawed, they'd hurt me, but they were still my family. I can forgive you. But forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting. Things have to change. They will, my mother promised. We want to know the real you, not just the successful businessman. We want to understand what drives you and support your vision. And we want to learn from you, Patricia added. About building something from scratch, about following your instincts even when others doubt you. That afternoon, I watched my father celebrate his retirement in my garden overlooking Lake Washington. 25 of his closest friends and longtime colleagues had come to honor his decades of dedicated work. People who'd known him since he was a young engineer, who'd watched him grow into a respected leader. Daniel gave a toast that surprised me. To my father, who taught us that real success comes from dedication, integrity, and treating people with respect. And to my brother Kevin, who taught us today that there are many paths to success, and the most impressive one is staying true to your own vision. Later, as the sun set over the lake, my father found me by the pool. Son, I need to thank you for today. For what? For showing me what a real celebration looks like. Those corporate executives Patricia invited wouldn't have cared about my 30 years at Hartwell. But the people you brought today, they were there because they genuinely wanted to honor my career. You deserve to be celebrated properly, Dad. I also need to apologize. I spent years worrying that you didn't have the security of a corporate job, but you were actually building something far more secure than any employment could provide. Security was never the goal, Dad. Freedom was. The freedom to build something meaningful, to make decisions based on vision rather than corporate politics. And you achieved that. I'm proud of you, Kevin. Not because of your net worth, but because you had the courage to follow your own path. 6 months later, I was in my office when Patricia called with an unexpected request. Kevin, I have something to ask you. I've been thinking about leaving my consulting firm to start my own business. Would you consider being an advisor? Not an investor, just someone who can help me think through the challenges of building something from scratch. What kind of business? Sustainability consulting for mid-size manufacturers. I've been working with companies in your portfolio, and I've realized there's a huge need for specialized environmental consulting. I want to build something that actually makes a difference. What does Daniel think about this? He's actually considering something similar. After seeing what you've built, we've both realized that working for other people's dreams isn't as fulfilling as building our own. It's not easy, Patricia. Building a business means taking risks, making difficult decisions, sometimes failing and starting over. I know. But watching you over the past 6 months, seeing how much you love what you do, I want that kind of fulfillment. Then yes, I'd be happy to help guide you through it. But as your brother, not as someone you're trying to impress. That's exactly what I was hoping for. That evening, I had dinner with my parents at their house. Something that had become a weekly tradition since the retirement party. My father was showing me photos from his latest woodworking project, a hobby he'd taken up since retiring, while my mother grilled salmon on the deck. Patricia seems excited about her business plans, my mother said. She should be. She's finally going to do something she's passionate about instead of something that just looks impressive. Like you always have, my father added. It wasn't always easy being the family disappointment. You were never a disappointment, Kevin. We were just too narrow-minded to see the bigger picture. And too stubborn to admit when we were wrong, my mother added. Daniel arrived with his wife for dessert. Another new tradition. He decided to take a sabbatical from his marketing firm to explore starting a business focused on helping small companies develop authentic brand stories. Uncle Kevin, Dad says you might teach me about business someday, his daughter said. Would you like that? Yes. I want to learn how to build something like you did. The most important lesson is to follow what interests you, not what other people think you should do. Even if it's scary? Especially if it's scary. The best things usually are. As I watched my family gathered around the dinner table, sharing stories about their new ventures and asking my advice about following their entrepreneurial dreams, I realized that canceling the retirement party had been the best decision I could have made. Not because it punished them, but because it forced all of us to confront what really mattered. Now, instead of being the family disappointment who secretly funded everyone's lifestyle, I was simply Kevin, successful entrepreneur, devoted son and brother, and the person they came to when they wanted to learn about building something meaningful. And that, I thought as my niece showed me her drawings of the business she wanted to start someday, was worth every uncomfortable conversation it had taken to get here. The following month, as I stood in my office watching Patricia sign the lease for her new consulting firm's headquarters in one of my buildings, at full market rate by her insistence, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Not because I'd proven my worth to my family, but because we'd finally learned to respect each other's choices and support each other's dreams without conditions. That, more than any business acquisition, was the real success.